Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We're running a little bit late here. We had some technical difficulties. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education for the School District of the City of Harper Woods. Today's date is October 15th, 2013. It's about 8 minutes after 7. If we could all stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Roll call. All members are present. We have a revised agenda which was left at your seat. Do we have a motion to accept the revised agenda?
Motion.
Do we have support?
Support.
Mr. Selburn, I do apologize. Ms. Green, is there an item missing from the agenda under the correction? It is a direct action item because of the creation of the new position. I know where it is. My error, sir. We're good.
All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the revised agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Revised agenda is approved 7-0. That brings us to 5.0 on that agenda, which is the approval of the consent agenda. That includes the expenditure reports for the month of September 2013, as well as overnight travel for June Tyson to go to the Network of Michigan Education Recognition Event and Leadership Conference. Ms. Lori Werbicki to the Advanced External Review / Lincoln Consolidated Conference, and for Ms. Tanya Norwood to attend the Capturing Kids' Hearts training that has been recommended by the Michigan Department of Education. As to personnel matters, we have a new hire, Mr. Derek Walton, paraprofessional at Beacon Elementary, and a resignation from Melissa Marshman, paraprofessional at Beacon Elementary. Any members wish to have anything removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Consent agenda is approved 7-0. That brings us to correspondence. Mrs. Purnell, have we received any correspondence?
Yes, we have. They have been forwarded to the board members as well as the school personnel.
Thank you. That takes us to 7.0, which are the district activities. We'll start out with a update on what's happening at Beacon from Ms. Gottsleben.
I'm first again.
You first again. We're back to tradition.
I had to check. Thank you. It feels better.
We're glad you're pleased.
Well, welcome. Beacon finished our meet today. We give the reading and the math. So math was our last portion today. We did something a little differently this year. All days of the meet, we gathered all third graders into the gym prior to the start of the day. So the third grade teachers were allowed to kind of set up for the meet. Mrs. Crane and I, we did we gathered some videos that were kind of strengthening, and we did some brain. First we ate breakfast, then we did a few little videos on, pumping up your brain, and then we did some brain gym, which is the bilateral cross movement, and ended up with, beat the meet, and it was very exciting, and we bathroomed them all. And so the teachers just were like, oh my goodness, what an amazing procedure that was. And then, of course, the whole school we announced that the meet was about to take place, and please be caring and kind in terms of movement through the building. So it was just a different feel. The second graders all wrote cheer letters to the third graders about do a good job. And so, it felt different this year. So let's hope, is what I can say. So let's hope that the scores show the kind of attitude and the atmosphere that went on during that time. We are well into our math workshop. Teachers have implemented that extended day workshop that we have been talking about. Students are engaged in strengthening. And really, I think I mentioned this before about the metacognition. That is the biggest piece, and I'm talking to the parents listening out there. I've had some parents, even some Tyrone parents, who are complaining, this is such hard math, this New York Engage. And I can see some parents shaking their heads. It's a metacognitive way of teaching. It's not about getting the right answer, but explaining different ways of getting the answer. And there can be a couple different answers. And so it's that explanation, and it's a really different way to teach math, to do math, and to understand math. But it is the way that true understanding, numeracy, is going to happen. So hang in there, parents who are out there, and we're all working on this together. Teachers are just beginning to teach some lessons that they feel good about, that they feel strong in terms of their delivery. We had our strategic intervention solution trainer come out and meet with our second and third grades on our New York Engage last 2 weeks ago. And I sat in on that, and it was so helpful for her to explain to the teachers, kind of take them down and explain the process. They're so used to teaching math the old way, which is A plus B equals C. This is very different. The pedagogy involved in it, the way the children think through it. Instead of the teacher standing up and giving, it's about the children engaged. And the teacher is the facilitator, and that's very different from most teachers. We're a vaudeville act in most cases. We're teaching and they're getting, and that's not the way this math rolls. So everyone be patient, parents hang in there. Please call Mrs. Van and I, teachers. We will help you through this. It's a learning process for everyone. But the children are loving it. Instead of number sentences, they call them number bonds. And the children are really getting it. So I just believe in it, and we have to stick with it and hang in there together and trust that this is the best way for our children to learn at the highest level in terms of numeracy. We had a Michigan author visit. The Michigan author came through the Harper Woods Library, and one of the things that she has to do is go and visit schools because she is a published author and Michigan chose her. So her name was Leslie Helikoski, and her book, she's written many, but she brought a book called Wilbur to our school, and she gave a great message to our kids about writing. She has several books out. Some of them are called the Big Chicken books, and if you know them, they are hilarious. And she really related that all of her chicken books are related to her own experience as a kid. She was afraid of a lot of things, so the chickens in her stories are afraid. And the Michigan librarian who travels with her had to stop and say to me that she has traveled to hundreds of schools in Michigan, and we are the top 10, one of the top 10 schools in terms of our engagement, our respect, and just the way the children. She said, I cannot believe you have 100 5-year-olds in this group, because they were so highly engaged and really enjoyed her. So kudos to the library and to Michigan for, kind of providing that free service for us. Our next EPO, which is the Elementary Parent Organization, is Tuesday, a week from today, at Tyrone. We had over 25 in attendance, Mrs. Van and I, at Beacon, so we're going to flip-flop. That's on the calendar. Please, please, please come. Mr. Hopkins did some iPad training with our teachers last Wednesday, and it was just amazing. I mean, buttons on the iPad, who knew? Just amazing. Trunk or Treat is coming up. Please write that down. It's 5:30, October 24th. No one will be turned away this year. We can fit up to 80 cars, but after cars, we will be doing lawn chairs. So if you can't get your car in, we promise you, you will get your lawn chair in. And it's a combined event between Mrs. Van and myself. So no one will be turned away. You will be receiving a flyer. Please register as soon as you can. I want to say thanks to all the families who are cooperating with our late start. I can't tell you enough, parents out there, how much work we are getting done. And, you know, we're energetic. That 2 hours is so invaluable, and my parents have been amazing. I have about 50 to 70 latchkey kids on a Wednesday morning, very well behaved. Everything is running very smooth now. I've probably jinxed myself, but it has been very smooth. And thank you for giving us that time, parents. I know it's not easy. Huge thanks to Trenton Hudson, Ronald Robertson, and Mr. Henry for bringing rock to Beacon. What a great message about hard work, teamwork. I just can't say enough. It was amazing. Ronald Robertson, his story kind of got interrupted, so he'll be back during March's Reading Month to finish his fabulous story about the Wembleys. So it was amazing. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. G.
Thank you. Mrs. Van? No?
Okay, just like Beacon, well, unlike Beacon, we are not done with the MEPs at Tyrone Elementary School. We have more MEP testing to do. But we were finishing up our math MEP today. Fourth grade will continue with writing tomorrow, and then fifth and sixth graders will be taking their science and social studies depending on different groups. If students have accommodations, they have to take the paper pencil version. For those students who don't need different accommodations, we are giving it online in the computer lab, and that's going to be interesting. So we'll report back on how that went. I mean, it's kind of a bonus for us because it gets us into the online testing game and experience it before, you know, Smarter Balance kicks in. But a couple of the teachers, when I had to set them up for 2 different 2-hour sessions in the lab, and they were like, we could have done this in half a day with paper pencil. And considering we've been meeping for so long, but we're going to see how it goes and report back once we've experienced that online test taking for science and social studies.
Maybe it'll mean faster results, though.
Don't hold your
It's
breath.
supposed to, except for the fact that I doubt they're going to release those results because you have a bunch of students who are taking it paper pencil and a bunch of schools who are taking it paper pencil. If the entire state was doing online, they could release the results quickly. But then, interestingly, I thought, how are they going to do accommodations for, you know, all these questions start popping up once you start getting into that game of online testing. I want to thank Mr. Selburn. If you remember correctly, you suggested we kind of let the parents know what we were expecting of students. So I did do a flyer for the parents, how to beat the MEP. I got a pretty good response for it. Put on Study Island, their username, their password, expectations for students, what parents can do to help. And so thank you for that. I think we'll keep that in our MEP agenda. It worked really well. And last Friday, we had Wally's Custard come out to us. One of the things that we are trying at Tyrone is for students who are not absent, who have good behavior, and give their best effort while they're taking the MEP. And for some of that, it's showing us that they're using the strategies, and they're actually trying, and they're solving the paper pencil. They're using for math. They're actually doing the problems to solve them, not just trying to guess and figure it out. For those students who qualified that they received last Friday, except for your daughter, she got a different treat. They received custard from Wally's, and it was really cool because he came in with his fire truck, and the kids were really, really excited. And there were some kids that messed up because of behavior. And a few of them who finished their MEP in a very, very short time and really didn't use any strategies. So they assured me this week it was going to be different, and I did check back with their teachers, and sure enough, it went really smooth today. The only difference is because they were really, really trying, and it went really, really long, which is good because when it goes too fast, it just tells us that kids are kind of not giving their best effort, and they're usually guessing at that point in time. So, this Friday, the slushy trucks are coming. I have not experienced that, but I will let you know how it goes. Wally's ice cream was amazing. He was so incredibly fast. We did the whole school in 45 minutes. Every child, and it was probably 85% of the students that qualified. And all the teachers got it too, and that was a big bonus. So yeah, it went really well. We did meet, I came over here and met with the 7th graders on that last, I believe it was the last Friday before we were going to start the meets, and my staff on that Monday. We did meet with students and go over last year's meet data, re-explained again what the scores meant. Kids kind of verbally set goals for themselves. We talked about what they want to do this year on the meet. We'll see if that makes a difference. So we're hoping it does. And just a message for all the parents. Mr. Dennis just reminded me this Friday we have some work being done on our circle drive. So I'll be sending home a letter that says you're going to want to have an alternative way to pick up and drop off your child other than the circle drive. We're going to have to work that out because that circle drive is not going to be able to be used just for Friday. So we'll figure how we're going to do that safely with parents. But for now, you might want to be thinking about it ahead of time. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. V.
And that brings us to the middle school and the high school. Mrs. Norwood.
I have the pleasure of presenting for both the middle and high school, so mine is going to be a little long, and my lovely students back here always support me, so, you know, they have my back. So just in case, you know, you mess with me, they're here for me. But academics, we are engrossed in everything MEEP in the middle school. We had a MEEP rally, which was awesome. The kids participated in a contest where they're going to write a rap or a poem, and at the dance that we're going to have, they're going to receive a prize. So what I did was I told them, you know, each female student, male and female from 7th and 8th grade, they're going to get $50 from the principal. And everybody has been catching me in the hallway. They'll just, you know, sing their raps, and they'll start giving me their poetry. So it's really exciting to see kids really get excited about, you know, the MEEP and writing. Vista Maria, they're going to implement their program starting next week, and their program is going to focus on tutoring, mentoring, cultural and arts, academic enrichment, and career exploration. I've met with several parents, and they want to implement it in the high school. The parents are really excited about this program. They also want to bring an etiquette class for the female students, so I really thought that's going to be really neat. The African American Men of Promise, Mrs. June Tyson, she's spearheading that initiative from the MDE, and the middle school staff, they've really been working hard at this initiative. It's basically focused on helping African American male students to close the gap on achievement. Physical development, the football team just won today, so we need to give a shout out to the football team. I think they're 4-0. Are they 4-0? Yep. I think they're 4-0. Also, I said middle school. Also, we have volleyball teams for the middle school girls, and they're really excited about that, and cheerleading. So I was out there actually at my age cheering with the middle school students, and I know I'm going to feel it later on. Focusing on the high school, we're really focusing on using data to drive instruction. All of our meetings, SLCs, learning teams have been focusing on using data to drive instruction, from Kaplan scores to reading scores to the plan. One-to-one technology, so I'm glad Mr. Williams is here to help us with, Silas is here to help us with that. We take our PSAT test tomorrow. MEEP Social Studies will be the first time we're going to do it online, so that's going to be interesting, as you said, you know, using the computers. We had good attendance for Count Day. We had a parent meeting, thank you, because it was really engaging. I think you all were here for a couple of hours, so that was a good thing. City Year, when I say City Year, it's phenomenal. They go to classes, they're working in the benchmark, they actually pull students out of the class, they're doing an excellent job. I love City Year. When you come in the building in the morning, they're outside dancing, and we all dance together, and the kids start dancing to get them excited, so they're doing a good job. Scholarships and honor awards, I had a chance to talk to the parents at open house about this scholarships. They didn't know that we offer a lot of scholarships. For example, the mayor gives a scholarship. So I want to tell them on the front end so they can prepare their kids in 7th and 8th and 9th grade. They don't wait till the 11th grade to prepare for scholarships. So we sent the letter home to the parents, and they really like that. College night will be October 30th, so come out and enjoy the experience. We're going to also have members of the Divine Nine, African American and female sororities and fraternities. They're going to do a brief step show, so kind of want to get the kids interested in that. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and before I just came here this evening, I went to the homeless shelter and fed the homeless in my old neighborhood, and then ran back here. So I want kids to understand too, you have to give back to your community. So they're going to talk about that. And Winning Futures today, I was in the library. They had about 35, 40 kids, about 10 mentors, and they were actively engaged. Ms. Mahone, I don't know what game you were playing, you know, on the table, but it was just beautiful to see the kids just focus on just doing just different things and having conversations about just being a better person. That's the kind of, you know, things that I heard. So thank you, Ms. Mahone. They really enjoyed, you know, I think you had more fun than the students. I kind of noticed that. Women of Tomorrow, it's a female mentoring program. Florine Marks of Weight Watchers. We have Kayla Williams. She was honored. I went to Mrs. Marks' house in Farmington Hills. It was beautiful. She just really laid everything out for us. And just to see Kayla stand up and present, she was a little nervous. And I just told her, you know, I thought about standing in front of everybody and how I get nervous and just to kind of close your eyes and slow down. And she did it. So it was just wonderful. Florine Marsh, she's really a nice lady, so we're going to keep that initiative going on. Miss Nagy, she's the contact person. She's awesome. Love working with her. One of the things that we had on campus was Under the Influence, a play about 3 African-American males in New Jersey who made a pact to become doctors despite everything that they went through, and it was 3 hours. And when I say the kids were on point, I had several students coming out hugging me, crying because it really touched them. So it was just phenomenal, and Ms. Hall did an excellent job putting it together. You know, she was running around all day, so I really want to make sure I give her a shout out. So we need to do more things like that. I really want our students to start, you know, participating in more events where they can put on plays, so I'm looking to do that soon. Spirit Week. Spirit Week was awesome. The kids were, and I keep saying phenomenal because I love these kids. They'll see me in the hallway, they just think I'm just the silliest person, but I respect them and they respect me. But you all did a good job, and our football and cheerleading teams, they're really modeling for kids. And one thing I like how they interact with each other. I see them talking to underclassmen, and I just want to give you all a shout out because they look up to you and they really, you know, like the way that you carry yourself. So I appreciate you all coming and just what you're doing in the school because, again, you set the standard. I think I told you all that this summer when I met you. So just to be able to participate in the parade, I've never experienced that before, to see the people in the community come out. You know, we were tossing candy, and the parents came out and built the floats, and it was just beautiful. And, you know, the game, the stands was packed, and I wish I could have met Mr. Burnell. I heard people talk about him a lot. He's really highly respected. Had a chance to meet the mayor. We have a lot in common, so he and I talked for like 30 minutes. I think I talked, you know, a little bit too much to him, but he just was nice and kind of nodded, so I enjoyed speaking to him. Miss Casey with Bannerama, they came in second place in a recent competition. So there are awesome things going on the secondary campus. And as I said in our robocall to the parents, come out and enjoy the experience. You know, our doors are open. This is a 24-hour operation, like Mr. Rosser always says, and I'm just excited about what we have coming up. The last thing is we're going to participate in pink and jeans. So we're going to collect money. All the kids are going to wear pink and jeans, and they can donate money for breast cancer awareness for October. So I'm just, like I said, I have 3 sheets. You know, I'm just really excited. So any questions?
They have college night?
College night, yeah, October 30th.
What are the hours of that?
6 to 7:30.
Okay.
It's going to be in the gym.
And there's going to be representatives from colleges and
Yes.
families that are looking for their kids to...
Yes, and I'm really focusing on getting the middle school kids in too, because I don't think you should wait until 9th and 10th grade. You know, they need to be exposed to that too. Also, like I said, I'm a part of a sorority, and I want the kids to understand too what it is to be in a sorority and fraternity. So I have members of my sorority and Miss Whitelow's and fraternities. They're going to come in and talk to the kids too.
And actually, this is open to
The public.
not just our students, but
Yeah, neighborhood, yeah.
the neighborhood, community students.
Yes. Yes.
The more the merrier.
Yes, yes, yes. So any other questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Norwood.
Oh, okay. Did you get that video going or no? That's very disappointing. Okay, all right. Thank you, Ms. Norwood. That brings us to 8.0 on our agenda, which is a student spotlight. And it has to do with something new here at Harper Woods. And I see 2 very nicely, impeccably dressed young men. I think that it involves them.
Yes, sir.
You want to lead this off for us, Mr. Beaterwolf?
I would be happy to. Mr. Trenton Hudson and Mr. Ronald Robertson, if you could please assume your leadership place at the podium, please.
Looking sharp.
Indeed.
Thank you.
So, board members, just for your clarification, the gentleman on your right is Ronald Robertson, and the gentleman on your left is Trenton Hudson. And guys, I'd just like to start by just asking you to tell the story a little bit to the board. I looked at some old emails today. I think this dates back to June. And you've got a story to tell in terms of the vision that you had and some of the steps that you took to help bring that vision to reality. So share some of that with us, please.
Well, at the end of last year's football season, we decided to. I sat down and I talked with Trent, my friend Trent here. He's really, really good with computers, and so we really sat down and thought about maybe we needed more school spirit, and we needed to bring more life out of the people that's in our community. We wanted to bring more people out to the games. Why not bring more people that's in our community to the games? If we live with them and around them every day, why not bring them out to our games? So I was thinking, what was something that we could actually bring parents and also not only the high school students out, but our younger students that's in Tyrone and in Beacon to all the games, how the parents bring the little ones out. So I was thinking they all love little things is what they really like to see that really bring the excitement out of them. I like kids. I love kids. So when they're happy, it just brings out the love in everybody. So I decided to, we decided to build a mascot. And as we began building it at the end of last year's football season, we really didn't think it would be this hard. It would take this long. We really thought it would have.
And talking to these many people.
Right. It took a lot. We actually thought this was a
simple thing to do.
A simple thing to do.
Just
a month
to create.
project. I never knew it would have took a year to build a mascot, but it did. And this past summer we had multiple meetings with Mr. Peter Wolf and Mrs. Green. Mrs. Green, we was constantly on and off with meetings and it was a lot. It was definitely a lot, but I definitely do appreciate Ms. Green for her time and also Mr. Peter Wolf. As we began doing this project, we actually came to Mr. Peter Wolf first, and we brought up the idea to him. He said he loved the idea. He was going to present it to the board, and when he came back to me and told me the good news that everything was okay, that we could start with the building and the creation of it, that's when we started. And as we started with along, things were looking kind of rough at the beginning, and at the end, everything was okay. Mr. Peter Wolf, he kept us striving through the whole thing. He always supported us through the whole thing. So as we began building it, we had to talk to a multiple of people, get a multiple of different quotes that Mr. Peter Wolf wanted us to get. Excuse me. He wanted us to get a multiple of different quotes, so we brought him 3. He asked for 2, we brought him 3. So just to keep Mr. Peter Wolf happy, and we all wanted this, so had to keep Mr. Peter Wolf happy. So as we brought it to him, we had a few different people that we talked to on an everyday basis, and we was looking at different prices and different quality of it. We didn't just want any mascot. We wanted it to be built. We wanted it to be built to last. We don't just want it for 1 year. We wanted it to last a lifetime.
So let me ask a couple of questions, if I might. Trent, when you and Ronald first came to meet with me, you had a rendering of kind of your vision of what this mascot might look like. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Like, Ronald was just looking for like pioneers, and he wanted to get a Spartan and all types of strong, buff, character-looking people. Like, that's not what a pioneer is. Like, a pioneer wasn't always muscular and ready.
So just for clarification, the he that you were referencing there wasn't me, correct?
No. And as down the line, we just was like looking at old images of how pioneers used to live, and looked at what they used to wear, and I just came up with the idea of just putting most of the stuff that I saw together, like fox fur hats and overalls with big boots and sweaters with an undershirt. And
when you first showed me those things, they were all on a computer version, if you will.
Right.
How did that come about?
just putting some pictures together, editing. Like, I get a part of one body, cut it off, add the other part, cut the head off, add another head to it, like that. The original vision was to have a Pioneer logo on the stomach and on the head, and have like a little rifle, but Mr. Beatles didn't want it.
That part I will take ownership for.
So Mr. Beatles came up with the idea to get a flag, a Harper Woods flag, which we thought would be bigger, but it was like 3 feet long. And we got a knapsack to add little things in, such as T-shirts or candy to give out, but that quite didn't happen at the parade.
Fine. So tell us a little bit more about, you actually phoned production companies.
Go ahead.
Got quotes and so forth, I believe?
Yes. Well, the first quote we started off with George Khalil, and he, as we began to talk to him, we talked to him one time. He never really contacted us back. He gave us his email and his email and other contacts. We tried contacting him. He didn't contact us back, and a few months later, he emailed us. By that time, it was too late. Then we contacted Heather Dorothy, and who we talked to for a while, and she really did, the way we looked at her production, and we didn't really like her style of making them. It really didn't look
Realistic.
yeah, it really didn't look realistic, and the texture of the fabric that she used, it just really looked like it wouldn't stay together. So we crossed her out, and then
The main reason we crossed her out because we was asking her how many times can we change the product, and she was like basically
two or three
two or three times, and from whatever then
we would have to
you just gonna have to go with the flow basically
and get a
that's not
contract
what we
with her,
wanted.
and that's not what we wanted. We wanted as many changes as we could get without a contract, so we could know how it would look before we actually started going on with the contract. And after that, we went to Dan Welch, and he's in Canada, and we talked to him on an everyday basis for almost 3 months. And as we talked to him on, and he made as many changes as we needed, as many times as we needed, because we had a lot of them. And he had no problem with it, so we liked it the way he just made himself available to us at any time, and we respected that, and we liked the way that he didn't take us as we were playing because of our age. He actually knew that we were really serious about what we were doing, and so we decided to stay with Dan Welch.
Okay. So do you have any recollection from the beginning when you first had conversations with, I think the company is Looney Times?
Yes.
From the time that you first had conversation with them, through the design conversations, through the production conversations, what's your estimate as to how many times you were interacted with that company and helped to guide them in the work that they were doing on your behalf?
Well, Dan Welch, from the time we started, we contacted him from the first day. We had talked to him maybe from then till now. It was a lot. Over 100 times. We talked to him over 100 times, in and out of the building. We talked to him repeatedly, and but we really never took it to the extreme with talking to him until he actually wanted to talk with the superintendent about, well, any administration about starting to build this project. So we went to Mr. Beetlewood first, and as he talked to Mr. Beetlewood, it went from there, and then we went ahead and we made our designs, and we did everything like that.
Right. So is the mascot going to make an appearance here this evening?
Yes, sir, he is.
All right, so before we do that, just one moment. Mr. Gray, if we can just take a look at the first PowerPoint, and that'll give us, the board, some idea of what this production process in part consisted of. This will be the video.
I was looking for the PowerPoint.
The PowerPoint
Is the video? I don't want to switch computers, so the video's okay.
Don't move the video.
So let's bring the mascot in and then we'll watch the video if we could. Trent, Ronald, why don't you make some introductions as he comes through the door?
Well, here's Rock.
All right, Rock. So we have some video that depicts Rock being introduced to the high school community, and then we also have a short PowerPoint that'll kind of show some of the production processes and some of his interactions at our elementary schools as well.
Okay, let's see if we can get the computer to cooperate.
So just clarify for me, gentlemen, it was just the two of you working on this project?
Yes,
On your personal time?
yes.
No administrator outside of Mr. Peterwolf or Ms. Green assisting you?
No,
Not at all.
Mr. Looney. Mr. Looney would like
Oh, well,
give
he
us
did.
some work ahead of time and let us do our work in class, or he'll let us do it after class while we worked on
On
the
the
project.
project during last year's school year,
And
which we passed with both with the neighbor.
unseen by the kids would be the consistent agitation of the business manager to make sure that this product was delivered on time for homecoming. And it was a push, and it took some agitation, but we got here.
It got a little tight at the end.
It did indeed.
All right.
All right.
Take it back. Right there. You have to play. Yeah. I go.
You sure that's sound?
Is there sound on this, gentlemen?
Supposed to be. Let the other piece go, Mr. Gray, we're okay.
But I still have to set it up.
Still have to set it up for the audit. Yes, sir, please.
I've got a question. Who named him?
All right, so this how that.
Throw me under the bus, Trent. It's okay.
Sorry. We did a survey. Me, Miss Green, and Rondo set up a survey. The first ever name that ever came before the mascot was here, Mr. Beetlewood, said Pioneer Pete. And me and Rondo was like, maybe.
Didn't get you excited, huh?
No, not really. So, I think it was one of our lunches. We had set up a meeting with Miss Green, and we stayed in her office about the whole lunch. And we just was coming up with names. We came up with all types of names, like we was coming up with crazy names. And the names that we came up was Pioneer Pete, Rock, and Antaeus.
Yes, Antaeus.
Tell them why you got picked Antaeus.
Well, the reason I picked Antaeus was because I figured since a pioneer was, such a strong figure, Antaeus was the son of the Mother of Earth, and as he had a fight with Hercules, and every time his feet was on the ground, he was as strong as any other god, but as he was lifted, he was just as weak as any other man. So I was thinking, as long as we got Rock that's grounded, not too much in the air, you might as well be Antaeus.
So the results came in,
and Rock won 2 votes above Pioneer Pete.
Yeah.
We were scared.
We think the old people voted for Pioneer Pete.
youth prevailed.
Yep, youth prevailed.
All right.
You mean, when you say old people, you don't mean seniors, do you? You don't mean seniors, student seniors.
No, old people. Like I said, toward the end, I was in contact with them quite often, and they could not have been more complimentary of you two gentlemen, how wonderful it was to work with you, how professional you were, and I'm so glad it came out as phenomenal. You guys did a phenomenal job.
Yes, you did.
Thank you. On behalf of the football team, I want to thank Mr. Todd Beetlewood and the entire board, and also Ms. Green for helping us so much this year with it. And we just want to thank you, and in the highest power respect, what we do is we clap it up. So Pioneers, clap it up. Clap it up. Clap it up. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much.
He's got a fan inside the head and everything.
Really?
Yeah, just to keep it cool. Yeah. And then there's a stomach pack that you put ice in, like that you can wear around your stomach. It's pretty.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Wow. Ronald's the star here.
Oh, okay. Oh. See what you got to follow now?
Hold tires.
Pretty cool.
Wow.
Pretty cool. Thanks for your help with it, Jim.
Oh, sure.
So you guys will ruin the rest of the evening, go to 10.
No! Art said no!
Fingers lost. All right. Okay, now here we are, back to reality.
He said back to reality.
That brings us to 9.0, which is a presentation of our annual fiscal audit. And we've got a representative here from Raymond Robson. One of you gentlemen want to introduce them?
Mr. Dennis, please.
Sure. I'd like to introduce Mr. Nate Balderman. He's the principal at Raymond Robson, and he's going to give you guys the overview of the audit that was performed on the June 30th statements.
All right. Somehow I always seem to follow something like this. So, so from the excitement of that to the excitement of the audited financial statements. So, I want to thank you for your time tonight. Thank you also for your flexibility with the schedule. In the workshop, you had Dave Fisher and Paula Bedford were both here with you. Dave Fisher has been the principal for a number of years here for the district. And we're starting a transition process. Dave is in the process of working towards retirement. He's not there yet, but we're just working in a transition. So Paula had hoped to be here, but we regret to say she's actually leaving us very soon. Her husband has actually already moved to Columbus, Ohio. We'll have to forgive her for that. But she's moving down, and so we're in the process. She had some daycare issues tonight and was not able to join me. So what I'm going to do tonight is just kind of walk you through some highlights of the audit, where to find some different things, and then give some time for questions. And of course, any time that you do have questions as I'm going through things, feel free to interrupt, and we can talk about it then. Also want to make sure that I take the opportunity to thank Jim and the business office for their preparedness, getting things ready, and it was a smooth process this year. So our audit process, basically, as always, we come out for a week of field work. There's a process of working through that audit. There's the planning process, and then working through. Usually we're able to get through things during that week of field work, and then there's just some time in processing reports. So that's why it always takes some time between when we finalize and when we're able to present. The audit team this year, as I had said, Paula Bedford was the manager on the job. I was the principal this year. Also in the transition, Dave was involved. We had communications with Dave throughout to make sure that this was a smooth transition. One thing I always want to point out when we're doing an audit, and you can also see it in the financial statements, in the audit report, is there's a responsibility that we have as auditors, and there's a management's responsibility. And we want to make sure that we differentiate those two, because it's oftentimes something that people will confuse, that the auditors are there to help. Their responsibility is to catch stuff, that they're a part of the internal control system that you have, and that's really not true. Our responsibility as auditors is solely to give an opinion on the financial statements and to make sure that these financial statements are reasonably stated. Our responsibility we're not giving you an internal control audit per se. We're not giving an opinion on the internal controls. We're looking at it as a part of the audit process, and we're required under the standards to report things to you, but that's not our primary responsibility. Primary responsibility also is not to look for fraud. I mean, it's a part of what we're looking at, and we're looking for material fraud. But we're also there's a basis of the audit where you're not going to be able to look at every transaction. So there's a part in our planning that we have to look at the risks that are associated in our plan or audit to address those risks, so that the risks of misstatement are low enough so that we can give that opinion. Management's responsibility is to prepare the financial statements, to have numbers that can be relied upon, and the internal control structure that's put in place by management should be such that there are no misstatements. So we're just really there to check it at the end to make sure that everything happened that was supposed to, and that you have financial statements that are reasonably stated. As you look at the financial statements, you have a separate audit report. It's the bound report. As you walk through the report, different sections, the independent auditor's report, that truly is, on the financial statement side, that's our part of the financial statements. The rest of it is management's. You do contract with us to assist in the preparation of financial statements, but really that auditor's report is where it really comes down to the opinion that we're giving. The next section in the report is management's discussion and analysis. That's on pages 3 through 10 of the report. That section is not audited. We look at that section according to the auditing standards to make sure that the information is consistent with the rest of the report, but we're not auditing the information. And part of that is just because of the nature of the information that's in there. There's a lot of discussion that goes on in that about variances from year to year, what's been happening, that type of thing, which is really not auditable information. So we do look at it, make sure that the information is agreeing back, and then we review it to make sure that the required elements are in that. The next section is really where we give our opinion, is the basic financial statements. And it's divided up into different sections. You have the government-wide financial statements. You'll find those on pages 13 through 14. Those financial statements, the government-wide, is on the full accrual basis of accounting. It's not what you're used to doing on a week-to-week basis or a month-to-month basis in managing the district. At least most don't look at that full accrual, because you're looking at, when you're looking at, for instance, the general fund, if you go out and buy a piece of equipment, that's getting it expensed. Where in the full accrual statements, that has to go on as asset and it gets depreciated. It's basically trying to account things pretty much like what a business would, with a few exceptions. And with the realization that there is still a difference between government and the objectives of a government and the objectives of a business. The next section, pages 16 through 21, is what are your fund statements. Those are reported on what's considered to be the modified accrual basis of accounting, and that's what you're used to seeing in terms of your general fund. If you paid in your general fund, your debt funds, that type of thing, where if you make a debt payment, if you purchase a capital asset, those types of things, those are going to be expenditures and reduce your fund balance. The next section, the notes to the financial statements, are pages 24 through 38. Those give basically more information on the balances that are on the front, as well as some disclosures on information like your retirement information, that kind of thing is also disclosed there. And then also with your report, the second part of our audit is what's called is the Single Audit Act compliance. Basically, if you have more than $500,000 in federal expenditures, at least the way the standards are set today, you're required to have a single audit. And then as a part of that audit, we go through and we audit based on risk certain programs that you have, the federal dollars that are coming in, and then we give an opinion on your compliance for those programs. So for this year, for the independent auditor's report on page 1 and 2, basically what you're looking for there, and it's actually changed a little bit this year. There's a little bit of difference in formatting. Standards changed this year on the auditing side, and part of that requirement was changing the way the report looks. But it's on page 2. The top of page 2 is where we give our opinion. But that's our opinion is basically saying the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles. And again, that materiality goes back to, we're not looking at every transaction. We're looking at the financial statements to make sure they're material correct, which basically we're trying to say you can rely on this information to make financial decisions. So, and an unmodified opinion is what you're looking for. In the past, it was called an unqualified opinion. They changed the terminology a little bit, and now it's unmodified. Right here, I just wanted to highlight your statement of net position. This is the full accrual that I had talked about before. And one of the reasons, two reasons I wanted to put this up. Number one is to highlight there's a change in the name from what you had last year. It used to be called the Statement of Net Assets. There was a change in standards, GASB 63 and 65, which said there's these two categories, deferred outflows, and you don't have any here, but deferred inflows. that the standard setters said, those really aren't assets or liabilities, so we're creating new categories for them. And because of those new categories, you can't really call it net assets anymore because you have these other things in the calculation. So we're going to change the terminology and call it net position. So that was a change this year. The other thing I wanted to point out is that the net position deficit on a long-term basis. That is mainly caused by the way, it's basically a difference between how your capital assets are being depreciated and when you're making bond payments. The bond payments are spread, the school bond loan fund is a mechanism to spread that out over time, and because of that, that basically causes that, that negative net position overall. It's something that's fairly common. I have a couple of different school districts that have that, and that's what's caused that to happen. But it should balance out over time as those bond payments catch up to where the depreciation is. But again, this is full accrual only. This is not considered to be non-compliance with state requirements, that type of thing. So
This doesn't mean we're running in the red, does it?
it doesn't, on a full accrual basis, it means that you have a deficit. On a full accrual basis, it says that you have a deficit and are in the red. But again, it's full accrual. It's not. It doesn't affect your general fund. Your general fund is not in the red.
It's not our general operation.
No, not general operations. It's all a result of that long-term debt that's out there that's larger than what the capital assets are.
Our general operations, we're running in the positive.
Right. General operations are running in the positive, and I have another slide that'll show you what the general fund balances are. So I just know that sometimes these numbers pop out and you see a negative, and just wanted to explain that. This slide here shows what your general fund balance sheet looked like for the year. Basically, you had assets of about $5.4 million. Your total liabilities were $3.4 million. And then your total fund balance at year end was almost $2 million. So there's a category there. There's two different types. Your general fund is split up between two different categories. You have non-spendable, and that's basically because you have some kind of prepaid or inventory that's out there that's booked that you can't spend it, so you can't re-spend it because it's already been spent. So the standards require that you report it as non-spendable, but then the rest is considered to be, it's a typo, it's unassigned, but it's to be used at the discretion of the board. On page 20, this just summarizes the budget to actual statement that's on page 20. And just what I try to highlight here, your total revenues. The first column is the original budget as it was adopted just before the beginning of the fiscal year last year. The last column is the final budget as after the final amendments to the budget were done before the end of this fiscal year, and then comparing that to the actual figures. Two things I would like to point out there. Part of what happened, this happened to school districts all over the place. The state came in at the end of the year and we're messing around with that. The MIPSR's unfunded liability funding, where they basically gave you the money and then made you pay it right back. That hit a lot of districts where they didn't have time to amend the budget, that type of thing. So their actual revenue and expenses end up being out of whack sometimes on some of those things. So that can be what some of the things are attributable to. But the other thing I wanted to point out is your original budget shows that you were originally budgeting to spend about $60,000 from fund balance. The amended budget at year end was about $530,000, and then your results ended up being to the positive $959,000. So it was better than what your budget and what the expectations were for it. So that brought your budget or your fund balance from the $1 million up to almost $2 million.
So just for clarification, if I could, in that lower right-hand corner where we see that nearly $2 million, that $1,977,949, that's the column where if that is a deficit figure, that's where some of those other governmental mechanisms like deficit reduction plans and emergency managers and so forth come into play. But in our case,
Right.
with a fund balance of nearly $2 million, we're on pretty solid ground.
Correct, correct. So, yes, so, and I'll go back here just for a minute. I hate to say it, but that number's going to get even worse in 2 years. There's a change in standards, another change in standards. You think these guys don't have time, but they have too much time on their hands in what they're setting with standards. But it's basically where a lot of the discussion has been going throughout the country over the last several years is all these unfunded pension liabilities. In 2015, the new standards will be implemented, and with that, the school district will be required to report a liability for the unfunded, for your proportionate share of the unfunded liability for MIPSers. So those will go on your financial statements. So again, it's one of those where you can kind of see when you have your own plan and that's unfunded. There might be something to say to have that on, but to really show what your liability is. But that MIPSer's liability is really difficult because you have no control over. You can't go out and say I'm going to give an extra $1 million because we think we can fund it because we want to fund it better. That you don't have that ability because it's all based on state contracts and that type of thing of what you're going to have to contribute. So, but that's what's coming. Just kind of as a warning that in a couple of years when you look at this full accrual statement, those numbers will be on there as well. Exactly how it's implemented is still being worked out. I mean, it's actually, you think it's a couple of years, when the standards first came out or when they were first talking about them, you said, wow, you got some time or whatever. When they finally implemented the standards and they're just starting to work through some of the implementation issues, it's coming quicker than what you think. So, so that's really the highlights that I have on the financial statements. Does anybody have any other questions specifically on the financial statements? I'm going to get into the single audit in just a minute. So, all right. The second part of our audit, like I had said before, was a single audit. On pages 44 through 47 is your schedule of expenditures of federal awards, and that shows the total federal awards, whether passed through the state or through Wayne Risa or through whoever, however you get the money. If it's attached as federal, then it's required to be reported here. You had $3.6 million in federal awards expended during the year. There's a risk assessment process that we go through each year. It considers what programs have been audited in the last couple of years, whether there were any findings in those programs, those types of things. We go through and evaluate that, and then we determine which programs we're going to pick. This year, we selected and were required to test the child nutrition cluster as well as the Title I cluster. So, and the expenditures for those programs are listed there: $710,000 for child nutrition and $240,000 of Title I. The schedule of findings and question costs is on page 54, and really when I like to point to this one because it's kind of a good place to go to that just summarizes our complete results of the audit and kind of tells you where things are at. In that schedule, there's a couple of different there's a financial statement finding as well as single audit finding. One thing we were talking earlier about the MIPSers accrual that they did at the end of the year and making you record revenue and expenditures for those payments. There was an oversight and there was a lot of confusion that happened throughout the year. But there was an oversight, and those amounts were not properly recorded when we came in and looked at the financial statements. And because of that, standards require if there's any kind of adjustment by us, because we can't be a part of your internal controls, if it raises to that level of significant or material based on our judgment, then we're required to report it to you. The change has been made to the financial statements. What you have in these financial statements are correct, and all the adjustments were made. But we are required to report that to you. The other issue that was in here was in the single audit. As part of our testing on the child nutrition program, we look at the applications for free and reduced meals, and have to verify that all the income information was correct and that people were placed in the correct categories. There was an instance where the person was not in the correct category, and you'll see in the response to this, there's really not much you have to do for it, since you don't have to go through that process with the eligibility that you have now as a district as a whole. But that's something that again, because there was that issue, we're required to report it. But the corrective action this year happens to be, there's not really anything that you have to do. So those were the two issues that we found that were required to be reported in the schedule of findings and question costs. There are also, and you'll see those in the separate letter that we issued in the attachment A. There are a couple of other issues. Basically, what I categorize the things that make it into this letter are more, they're not weaknesses that raise to the level to make it into that other report. They're more things that we look at and we say, there's some things that we see and we've seen at other places, maybe some best practices, that type of thing, where we feel that there could be some improvement to what's there. It doesn't mean that you have a big weakness in what you have, but we think you could make things just that much better if you did these things. And they were related to the student activity accounts and some things that we've seen in other places where advisors review the activity for the year, that type of thing, to kind of give that other sign off and that other look at things to make sure that they know what's going through their accounts and we can verify what's going through there so there's not misclassification. And then the other thing was on employee pay rates, just in terms of the documentation that's kept in the file. Again, we didn't find anything where anybody was paid incorrect amounts or anything like that. It's just the documentation in the files that we're recommending be there. So those were the other two comments that we have. So with that, I'd open it up for any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
We discussed this in length at our workshop, and I think everything that I had was answered there. Do you want to compliment Mr. Dennis on his job this past year? I don't have to? Yep. But I did.
I appreciate it.
If I'm not mistaken, this is perhaps the first time in a little while that we've gotten everything done.
On time.
On time,
Yeah.
at this point in time, well in advance of the deadlines for the state of Michigan. I think in the past years, it became a matter of crunch time.
Been tight.
Very tight. So that's nice to see that we're working within comfortable time frames.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything? Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And I
Thank
think
you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much,
we'll have
sir.
an action item a little later in the meeting where we approve this.
Okay.
And then we can send it on to the state.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Okay, and speaking of action items, that brings us to 10.0 on the agenda, which is public participation regarding action items. If anyone wishes to address the board on any action items, please step to the podium. Seeing none, that will take us to 11.0, which are the action items. And here we are at 11.1, which is approval. You know, I've got to look at the other. I'm looking at the wrong agenda. No, it's 11.1. And that's on what page? Page 27 in our packet. And we have a recommended motion that the Board of Education accept the annual audit prepared by Raymond Robson for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2013, as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any discussion? I don't think we need any support. Oh, thank you. I think we've talked about it. I don't know that we need any further discussion. Anything you want to add? Either
No,
of you
sir.
two gentlemen?
Not myself.
Anybody from the board have anything to add? Okay. All in favor of approving the audit as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The audit is approved 7-0. And that brings us to... Get this organized here. It brings us to 11.2, which is the current 13-14 budget amendment 1, and that is at page 28 of your packet. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approves the attached 2013-2014 budget amendment 1. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have support?
Support.
All right, any discussion? Before we get into that, perhaps either Mr. Biederwolf or Mr. Dennis wants to just give us a brief update on this?
Just a couple of quick comments, and I'll ask Mr. Dennis if he wanted to speak to anything more specifically. Really, this is kind of an extension, or rather the beginning again of this auditing process and the board's oversight and direct involvement in the financial performance of the district. It's kind of traditional at this time that the management bring forward a recommended budget amendment for the board's consideration. Part of that is the fact that we have a much more solid understanding of our enrollment levels in the district. It's kind of a two-sided conversation this year. Enrollment in the district is up about 6% compared to last year, but yet and still we did not meet our enrollment targets, and so there is some reduction in anticipated revenues based upon those enrollment levels, although I want to say again for emphasis, our enrollment levels are in fact up. And then, you know, we don't often think about it this way, but the fiscal year starts on July 1st, so in fact, through the month of July, through the month of August, and through the month of September, in fact, this fiscal year is more than 25% over. And so certainly a significant factor in this budget amendment is our enrollment levels, but a couple of other things that you might highlight, Mr. Dennis.
Right, as we discussed in length at the workshop, and tagging on to what Mr. Biederwolf just said, we did have incremental revenue that was part of the carryover grant. As you guys know, a couple of the federal grants go from October 1st to September 30th, where the school year ends on June 30th. So any of the money not spent there automatically carries over to the next year, and we had almost $400,000 in incremental revenue there, offset by incremental expenses, since that's how we receive that money. I did have to the National Health Care Plan we assumed was going to be in effect as of day one, and as we know, that's been delayed a year. We did have some additional parking lot improvements at the two elementaries as well as up at the high school here, and correspondingly, because of the smaller enrollment at Beacon, we had 2 additional teachers that were planned that were not hired. So that nets us down to the adjustments that we're recommending. And once we get a solid count for based on the October head count, we'll probably do another revised thing, since obviously head count is the major factor in pretty much everything we do.
What are the changes to what we're approving tonight from what we looked at our workshop?
The
Actual enrollments?
We did update the enrollment accounts.
Yeah.
In particular, we had enhanced enrollment both at Diploma Success and at the Harper Cyber Academy, and so those enrollments were embedded in this budget, and a couple of minor adjustments and expenses.
There
I
were some
thought.
minor adjustments to
Okay.
for the parking lot.
But the primary
was the
changes
headcount.
was the actual
Yes.
enrollment, or as accurate as we know at
Yes,
this
sir.
point? Okay.
Yes.
Just so we're clear, and I know Mr. Dennis mentioned that we did not hire a couple of teachers that we were anticipating we may have to hire if enrollment had come in where we had projected it. But on the other side of that, we haven't had to lay off any teachers.
No, we in those regards, we're performing, I think, very well, frankly. And I think your point is well made as well. A community member may hear we didn't hire teachers, and is that a cause for concern? And my answer to that would be no. It's one logically following the other. We did not quite reach those enrollment targets. We're serving a few less students than we anticipated, more than the previous year, but a few less than we anticipated, and so therefore we did not need that additional staffing. Our staffing levels across the district are equal to, or maybe one more. I think we're employing one additional teacher compared to this time last year, with that additional staff person being at Tyrone, I believe.
And it actually worked out that the 5th grade, which is the grade we were worried about that we didn't have the teacher, actually ended up having the highest number of students
They still
of
do.
the 3 grades. So we did hire that additional 5th grade teacher.
So I appreciate that question. So it's kind of like enrollment did go up, and so we've just been reminded that we are employing an additional staff member to serve those additional students, but it didn't go up as much as we anticipated, and that's the other positions Mr. Dennis referenced.
So we're well staffed.
We are very appropriately staffed, in my opinion.
Did the changes with the budget impact classroom sizes at all?
Classroom sizes, I mean, you can't make a defining statement for every classroom or every grade level, but generally speaking, class sizes are down a little bit in the district, and that's part of that, enrollment piece that we've talked about as well. Just 1 or 2 students, but that's unfortunately, that's a good outcome. Through that lens of being better positioned to serve kids at a high level.
It also gives us a little bit of a cushion.
Absolutely, residents, move into the community. We've got a seat for them.
Okay. Anybody? Any other questions or comments concerning this action item to approve the budget amendment 1? All right. Hearing none. All in favor of approving budget amendment 1, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion passes and is approved 7-0.
We'll have that on the website tomorrow.
And that brings us to 11.3, creation of a new position.
31.
Some of the backup for that is on page 31. And then we received a job description that was placed at your seat this evening. It was emailed earlier in the day, if anybody wants to refer to that. But it brings us to the recommended motion, which is that the Board of Education approves the creation of a new position, SIG IT 1-to-1 Integration Specialist for the Harper Woods High School in the Harper Woods School District. Do we have a motion?
Motion?
Do we have support?
Support.
Okay. Mr. Beowulf, you want to explain all this, what all this means?
Happily. So the board will remember that we hosted the MDE in late September, and they were at that time conducting an audit of the implementation of our SIG grant, particularly last year, but really over the last 2-year period. And our belief is that that audit went well. We have not yet received the formal summary from that audit. As soon as we do, we will certainly provide that to the board, but our belief is that audit went well. And part of that is how well it is that you defined your plan in your initial stages, and how well it is that you have followed and are then implementing that plan. But we know that last year we were very fortunate in that we received some augmented SIG funding, and as a result of that, we were able to purchase 450 Mac Air books for our high school students and move toward a one-to-one integration structure.
One-to-one meaning?
A computer for every child. And so as we then began to look at our year 3 SIG budget, it was very clear to us that if we were truly going to realize the intended impact of that one-to-one integration, then we were going to need to provide additional support to both our teachers and to our students. So had that conversation with the MDE, made some adjustments in partnership with Mrs. Norwood and Mr. Dennis in our year 3 proposed budget, and the MDE has now approved the district for moving forward with the hiring of this position with the funding source intended to be school improvement grants revenues. And so this is a position that really I would contextualize as a teacher coach. If you go back to our origins of those discussions in the transformational model and that concept of job-embedded professional development, the professional development and support comes to the teacher and comes to the student in his or her classroom instead of that old model of the teacher leaving the classroom to garner that insight and that training, if you will. And so we're really excited about the potential of this position, and pending your approval of the new position, the candidate that would be recommended to occupy this position, which would be your next action item, pending your action here.
So this position at this time will be funded through the SIG, or the upcoming SIG.
That is correct. It is funded actually through this SIG fiscal year, which began on October 1st and runs through September 30th.
And you've received an approval for us to go ahead with this position.
I have.
Has the entire SIG grant application been approved yet by the state?
It's been submitted, but I do not believe the entire budget has been approved.
The SIG budget is, and it's all been put on hold until the legislature does what they're going to do with Common Core, and then the budgets will be approved.
But thank goodness they said go ahead with this.
They did give us
this
approval,
part of it, so we
yes.
didn't have to hold off on
Correct.
something that really needs to be done immediately.
Yes.
So can you just briefly explain for those watching the difference then between Mr. Hopkins and this position?
Well, there's similar roles. Part of it is the devices that they themselves will be supporting. The K through 8 is focusing more on iPads, whereas the 9 through 12 is focusing more on our Mac Air books, and pending your support of additional action item workstations in our business lab as well. And so what we have is the opportunity with this position to really strengthen the level of support. And so this being a SIG-funded position, this staff member will serve almost exclusively our 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students and staff. So there'll be very dense support at those 4 grade levels. But then as a result of that, we will also achieve more support, or have more support available at the K through 8 levels, because our IT integration specialist in the form of Mr. Hopkins will not be serving to a significant extent grades 9 through 12. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
And go
Go ahead.
So with Mr. Hopkins here and the new hire, I know Mr. Peltier had recently left, forgive my memory here, and he was our IT specialist, just supporting our devices really and how they work and make sure they were updated and that sort of thing. So that with bringing someone on that position, that gives us 3 really IT positions here.
That is correct. And if you roll the clock back a year, we were really looking at just the 1. And I just, again, to me it's about making sure that you're more than walking the path, that you're supporting the path that you're walking. And so the board has invested heavily in iPads for our student use, and so then you have to support that investment by providing resources to enable students and staff to learn how to use them at a high level. And that's what it is that the board has done via the integration specialist, and here via the one-to-one.
And I know that you had visited prior to, along with probably Mr. Rabideau, similar districts that had that one-to-one implementation. And is that similar? Had they had one person in the IT, 2, 3? Are we doing better? Do we have more people, the same?
So no question, as we made those visitations last year, became very quickly evident to us that we were understaffed. And we may still not be as densely staffed as that district that we visited in the Grand Rapids area, Godfrey Lee, but I think we're competitively staffed with Fraser more locally. Any way you look at it, we've really strengthened our commitment to technology as a means of engaging kids in their learning, getting kids more excited about learning, and helping kids to learn at a higher level.
Agreed. Thank you.
And just to, I think you were looking, I think Mrs. Quaker was looking for if there is a distinction between Mr. Hopkins' role and this new position's role. And I think one distinction, of course, is that this position is dealing with that, as you call it, the one-to-one implementation. We're not quite there yet in our lower grades. We're close, but we're not quite there. So there is a difference there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in part of that really is the density, and I'm not sure again that's the right word, but the complexity of the student utilization of the capabilities of technology. I really think that this investment in one-to-one is really going to enable our students to accelerate their skill sets in those areas.
They'll be using, I'm envisioning them using these devices constantly.
I think we'll get to that point.
Whereas at the lower grades, because we don't have quite one-to-one, they can't be using them constantly. They may be in constant use, but not by all students all the time.
I get it. I think that's a good conceptualization.
And Mr. Hopkins in this new position is here to support the teachers in their teaching using these devices, while the other IT position is really to maintain the workability of the devices themselves.
Yes.
The systems.
Yes.
The operating system, the security system, all of that.
Yes. The one role, make sure the machines work. The other two roles are intended to enable students and staff to learn them, or to learn to use them to their fullest capability.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. We have a motion to approve the creation of the new position, the SIG IT one-to-one integration specialist for the high school. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. The motion is approved, 7-0. And that brings us to the next logical item on our agenda, which is the hiring of the SIG IT position integration specialist, which would be, the recommendation is that Mr. Silas Williams. We have a motion, recommended motion, which is at page 32 of your packet, 11.4, that the Board of Education approves the hiring of Silas Williams as the SIG IT one-to-one integration specialist for the Harper Woods High School. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Do we have support?
Support.
Okay. Mr. Biederwolf, you want to tell us about Mr. Williams?
Well, first, just for the board's understanding, Mr. Williams is here. Mr. Williams, we absolutely appreciate your being here this evening. Welcome. And so, as the board looks at Mr. Williams' credentials, on page 34, I would draw your attention to the fact that he has a master's degree in instructional technology. So he is more than a practitioner. He has also been trained in these processes. He also has an educational technology teaching endorsement, as you can see, and he is currently a technology teacher with Detroit Public Schools. On page 35, certainly something that also caught my attention and that of the committee members was that he is also a professional development trainer with the Apple Corporation. So that means that he is employed directly by Apple. He then travels across the state and/or across the country, providing professional development to device users, such as our teaching staff and our students. We think that he is an excellent candidate, and we are very excited to bring this recommendation forward for your consideration.
2 questions. That work that he's doing for Apple doesn't take place during the school week?
He'll be here, sir.
He'll be here. That's a weekend type of activity?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. And I heard you mention the word committee. This hiring process was done with the assistance of a committee?
It was. It would take me back a little bit to recall who was on that committee. I was on that committee. Mr. Rabideau was on that committee, and I believe Mr. Rosser was on that committee as well.
I recall you were very enthused about Mr. Williams. You were excited.
I told Mr. Williams when I met with him last week, I never forgot about him. I just had to get the ducks all lined up.
It's been a wait to get to this point, to get the position approved by the board. The education department.
There's just some strange things going on in Lansing right now, and so we had to be patient.
That's business as usual, isn't it?
I have 2 items. The recommended candidate, Mr. Williams, is he aware that this is a grant-funded position and we don't know the future of the, actually we do know the future of the SIG grant. We're in our last year of it. We don't know if this is something we are going to continue. He's aware of that.
Have had specific...
I don't like people accepting jobs not knowing what the future holds, and the future, is questionable.
Yeah, understood. Absolutely specific conversations about that have been held.
And then with that in mind, are we using the services of a third-party employer for this position?
We are.
Okay. Then I'm fine.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the recommended motion to hire Mr. Silas Williams for the new position of SIG IT one-to-one integration specialist for the high school, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The hiring of Mr. Williams is approved 7-0. Congratulations, Mr. Williams. Welcome aboard.
Welcome, sir. We'll look forward to you getting started in the very near future.
Thank you.
And it brings us to 11.5, which is 55? Yep. Found at page 55 in your packet, which is Beacon Kitchen Equipment Purchase. Recommended motion is that the Board of Education approves the purchase of the following kitchen equipment for the Beacon Elementary Kitchen. 2 items, a reach-in refrigerator, 1 section, for $2,879.89. And the second piece of equipment is a rethermalization / holding cabinet.
It's only one thing.
I thought so. For a cost of $7,835.58. The grand total of these 2 items is $10,715.47. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
There's support.
Support.
Okay. You want to fill us in on this, Mr. Peter?
I'll defer to Mr. Dennis if that's
Sure,
okay.
that's fine.
Mr. D, please.
If you guys recall, I want to say it was 4 or 5 years ago, the Beacon Kitchen was updated, and over the course of time, and actually the folks at Beacon and the Cheryl folks seeing what was done at Tyrone with the new equipment we added over there, they are recommending that we purchase these new items. It will get the Beacon Kitchen to be comparable with the Tyrone Kitchen and enhance the incremental servicing that we're doing now with the warm breakfast and then the dinner program. If you recall, at the last meeting, we were just, as part of the audit, we were discussing that food service fund, and Mr. Selwyn actually asked me how come there was so much money in there. My answer was that the majority of it was for the Tyrone project, which will hopefully be done this summer. This money will also be coming out of that fund, so this will not be coming out of the general fund also.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
we're retiring equipment in the process. What are we doing with that equipment?
The pieces that came from Tyrone needed to be retired, and I have to be honest with you, Dave, I'm not quite sure what the actual condition of those are.
All right.
I'll let you know.
But even these, I mean, these obviously are newer because we redid that kitchen
I do want to say 5 years ago, yeah.
So,
I'll let you know. I honestly don't have an answer for you.
There is some policy that will guide both you and I in that regard, Mr. Dennis, so we may want to take a look at that tomorrow. It's policy 7310. I just happened to take a look at it earlier today, thinking perhaps this may be a question that came up. But certainly there is guidance that comes from the board in terms of what that process should entail.
You guys should know that. You'll have that answer by Friday.
So this is equipment that's going to put Beacon on a par with Tyrone.
Yes.
Although Tyrone still needs some further improvements.
Tyrone needs some actual enhancement to the area itself.
Okay.
The equipment that we have now, that will make it comparable. All the equipment is
We
in.
did some work at Tyrone over the summer. Is that similar to what this is or not? This is something that
No,
was done?
this is literally just new equipment. There's no additional work to the room itself that needs to be done. This is
So
literally...
no electrical upgrades or any of those kinds of things are required here?
Correct.
Okay. It caught me by surprise because there'd been no discussion about this previously.
And to be honest with you, Brian, the same thing happened. They brought it to my attention. I went down there with them. It does need to be upgraded, replaced, and realistically, figuring we had that extra money, I thought if we bring it to you.
We're serving more food there now.
Absolutely.
We are indeed.
So this is something that was brought to you by Chartwells.
Correct.
Okay. It's not it's a fairly reasonable expenditure.
I frankly thought it were going to be more, but they got the 3 bids. These are the ones that they recommended, and which is the same company the same equipment that we did. Like I said, we bought at Tyrone.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, the freezer component is about supply on hand. That rethermalization is about maintaining temperature and quality of food. And, I mean, our enrollment at Beacon, Ms. G, is up 20% over the last 2 years. So I think your point is well made. We're serving additional students, and part of this is about efficiency and maintaining quality.
But we've added breakfast. We've added, I like to call it universal breakfast, now universal lunch. We're serving snacks, we're serving dinners.
As well.
So when I say more food, I mean more meals and snacks.
Yep.
All of the above.
Okay. So some of this, I guess, is probably also food safety.
Certainly,
When you say
yes.
maintaining temperatures, to me, that's food safety.
It is.
So what I'm hearing is that although we did not budget for these particular items, we do have funds in the budget to cover it from general fund.
It's not coming out of, there's a food service fund as well as the general fund. So pretty much what you saw in the audit, what you referenced was pretty much the general fund. The food service fund is the money that I'm going to be using to do the upgrade at Tyrone, and that this money is going to be coming from.
Okay.
It's not going to affect the general fund whatsoever.
The food service fund is a fairly healthy balance.
Yes.
Is there any resale value of these items?
That John, I don't know. I'll have to see what the actual condition is. I'll rely on Chartwell for that. And I'll let you guys know as soon as I find out what the conditions are.
Okay, anything else? All right. All in favor of approving the motion to approve the purchase of the new pieces of equipment at Beacon, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion is approved, 7-0. Brings us to 11.6, the auxiliary campus driveway entrance. This is something near and dear to my heart. I think Mr. Keen's heart as well.
I've been bringing it up for probably over a year now.
Not meaning memorial in the sense of memorial, but it's going to be called the Dave Keen Memorial Driveway.
I'm on a year and a half.
Listen,
Dave,
Rome
so-
wasn't built in a day. What do you want?
It took a while. No, but it happened. I mean, it required a...
Okay, this is 11.7. It's at page 61. Oh, no, I'm on the wrong page here.
59.
Page 59 in your packet. And that the Board of Education authorizes the administration to execute the bid received by Nagel Paving Company for $38,380 per the... Yes, right. I think that was previous language, which is no longer needed. So we'll stop it right there at the dollar amount, and you can cross off the last few words of that.
I'll make the motion.
You have support?
Support.
Okay. What is the auxiliary secondary campus driveway entrance, Mr. Beaterwolf?
It's good news. That's what it is. As the board would understand, we have been working toward this for some time. This formal action really would be intended to position us to fully move forward. All of the proverbial I's and T's have now been dotted and crossed. We do have our formal approval to encroach on the property of Eastland Mall. And so this recommendation is to create the installation of a second entrance and exit onto the secondary campus. That entrance and exit will be onto what is known as Eastland Drive. And so if you could envision coming up the current driveway, getting to the end of the driveway, making a sharp right-hand turn, driving behind the home football stands and continuing out into Eastland Drive, that is the intended location of this capital improvement to this campus. We think it will, one, improve our traffic flow on a daily basis as students and their families both arrive at and work to depart from school. Two, we think it will absolutely improve our traffic flow as we look at special events like football games and graduation and Bandorama and so forth. And probably most importantly, should it be necessary, the third component is in the advent of an emergency, we absolutely believe that it is critical that there be multiple access points to this campus so that, if needed, emergency equipment and emergency personnel could have immediate access to this campus. And I believe, Mr. Dennis, I saw an email that they're anticipating to break ground tomorrow.
Yeah, it's already staked. If you drive by, it's already staked out.
Awesome.
So the project's ready to go.
So we're really hoping that you are going to approve this motion so that we're authorized. Otherwise, I might be out there with a sign, no, don't dig or something.
No, there's a number 4. I mean, the pedestrian and student safety at, that crossing, because of all of
Reducing
that.
traffic,
I mean,
thank you.
It's because of the traffic.
You are correct. You are correct.
So if traffic loops through, comes in through our current driveway, and loops out through this new access, which I think is what you're anticipating, then when those cars exit, they're going to go out onto Eastland Drive. There's a traffic light there, which will allow them to get onto Beaconsfield, utilizing the green light from the traffic control signal. They can go left or right. It's going to reduce all that congestion down at the end of our driveway.
Yeah. And most important to that, left or right, not all out of one lane.
Right.
But left-hand lane for traffic and right-hand lane, and we really think that it will, as our parents understand it's there, and as we direct them there, I'm confident that traffic patterns will improve, and we'll just have fewer issues with it taking too long for parents to get on campus and off campus as they manage their calendars and work to get to work on time.
And this is supported by the city?
Supported by the city.
And Eastland is on board?
They've been
kudos
great
to
neighbors.
Eastland. Kudos to Eastland.
It's taken a while. That's just how big business and government work. And when you bring the two of them together, it takes a while. They have supported this project from the initial request. They have continued to support it, and now we have the full authorization.
And one last point. I think we have still a small fund left over from the capital improvements fund.
I would defer to Mr. Dennis.
And I noticed this is about a little over 38,000 in total cost.
Right.
But we've got some money that has just been sitting there waiting to be spent from the bond. When I say capital improvements, that's from the bond money.
Right, it's a little over 20,000.
So we're going to use that towards this 38,000. We're going to close that out. And it won't take, the full amount will not have to come out of our general operating fund.
Correct.
Is that
Call it
serving as
win-win-win. I like it.
Is that serving as an exit only?
So one of the things that we may do is, we may try a few things over the period of the first couple of 3 weeks to try and make some of those determinations. There was a time when AAA, for example, would come in and do traffic studies and offer you some assistance. They no longer offer those services. So, I've walked it with a few people and, to kind of get insights and thoughts, including individuals who experience it every day and have some insights and some thoughts. So, it will be a 2-lane, so it will have the capability of supporting both entrances and exiting. Whether that's how we'll use it every day, yet to be determined. But we will certainly use it every day to improve our traffic patterns.
And it will have a gate to shut it off in non-school hours,
Also.
so it doesn't end up as a cut-through.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really kind of like right now is there's very little what I'll call pedestrian traffic that really enters onto the secondary campus. And so yes, it will be gated, and we will open that gate for the morning arrival and close it, and open it for the afternoon dismissal and close it.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Sounds great. So, all in favor of the Board of Education authorizing the administration to execute the bid received by Nagle Paving Company for $38,380, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion is approved, 7-0. Now, that brings us to 11.7, which is just simply labeled computer purchase. And that's at page 61 of your packet. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approves the technology purchases of the following hardware per the indicated price for the Harper Woods High School students, and in particular the high school business class and staff. And this includes 36 HP Compaq Pro 6300 computers for a price of $16,200, 36 HP 20-inch LED LCD monitors for $3,744, 1 HP color LaserJet printer for $1,251, and 36 upgrades to i5 processors for $1,080, grand total of $22,275. Again, Mr. Beadwolf, why don't you bring us up to date on this?
So first of all, Board, this recommended purchase is under the auspices of our school improvement grant funding source. And so as we move toward the close of the 12-13 fiscal budget year for SIG, we just realized that we had some unexpended funds, and a very appropriate use, we believe, to recommend this purchase. This purchase would align with our smaller learning communities, and in particular support our business, our media, and our performing arts smaller learning community. The devices in that particular classroom, my recollection is predate my arrival to the district, and so they are at least 4, I would suggest 5 or 6 years old. They are reasonable machines, but they don't have the processing capabilities to keep up with some of the media productions of the type that you saw presented to you in the approval, or excuse me, in the presentation early this evening as we celebrated our mascot. And so we looked at this, felt that we had a funding source that aligned with our smaller learning community, that is all part of our transformational model. And therefore we bring forward this recommendation. And a second component of this, and I think an obvious question to ask is, okay, Mr. B, but there are computers in that classroom currently, what will happen to them? And so a large percentage of them are intended to be repurposed to the on-campus Harper Academy. Many of the computers in the Harper Academy, of the desktop variety, were donated to us from GM via the United Way. And certainly we were very fortunate to receive that donation. They've served us well for a couple of years, but they were used machines when we received them. They just are requiring too much maintenance. We have used laptops to try and backfill those, but you gotta remember these kids are on those devices a large part of the day, and the screens are smaller and so forth. So we think it's an appropriate recommendation, and we seek your support.
Any questions or comments?
Yes, I had a question about the HP Color LaserJet. Because if you look on the next page, it said the promo price was up to $10, $11, $13. Today it's $10, $15. So is this price still the same?
It is. I did have some conversation with Mr. Selburn late last week. As I say, we were up against the SIG budget deadlines. Cart's gotten a little bit ahead of the horse on this one, but we did get that deducted price.
All right, now, every student already has an Apple computer, correct?
Well, we're close to that, Mrs. Menino. So, our funding source enabled us to purchase 450 Mac Air books.
Right.
And so it's kind of a different, it's more complex than would initially seem. But we have all of those computers are deployed in our core content classrooms. It's our math, English, social studies, and science across the district. They're in our art classrooms. I was in art classes last week, saw students and staff utilizing them. But in this particular case, as they already had computers in that classroom, we weren't able in that allocation to make this replacement. So in essence, this will move this class to a more modern device point, much more like what it is that the students see in their other classrooms.
Okay, but what I was understanding was each child has his own computer. Do they indeed? Are they assigned per student, or are they assigned classroom-wise?
The computers are in the classrooms and utilized throughout the day by the students.
So they're not using the same computer all the time?
Correct. They're using the same brand and model of computer and storing their devices, their documents in the cloud and on Google Docs and structures of that type. But they're not always using the same machine.
Okay, I got you.
What is to become of the computers that are in Harper Academy?
Kind of an undefined point at this point. Some of those computers are in reasonably good condition and reasonably reliable. There's kind of a sliding scale there, but certainly there are some machines that as a sellable product may not have high value, but as a usable product may very well be valuable in various aspects.
Well, I think, Ms. Beardwell, I think there might be some students, some families that don't have technology at home. I mean, I'm seeing that these are probably just going to end up on the curb at some point.
Or in the recycling bin.
They don't have sale value.
I would agree.
But as you said, they have user value, and it would seem like we may have some families here that could benefit if we just let them use these computers or have these computers.
Okay.
If the administration can make some type of determination where there's a need, and maybe we can help out with that need, rather than just sending these to the recycling bin.
So I appreciate your asking that question. And as I indicated to Mr. Dennis earlier, I did have an opportunity to kind of just investigate this a little bit earlier. Policy 7310 does establish that the superintendent is authorized to dispose of obsolete instructional or other property by selling it or by donation to appropriate parties. And so if you as the board would like to establish that your directive is that we look to create a mechanism to perhaps donate these via lottery or some appropriate mechanism to families in the district, we'd be happy to proceed accordingly.
Well, I would support that.
I would too. I think it's a good idea. I mean, they do have limited, if any, value resale, but they're usable. So.
And they didn't cost us anything.
Yeah, they were donated to us from the United Way in the first place.
Right.
So. Okay, is that the prevailing viewpoint, if you will?
I would go
Well, if you
for
want,
that too.
if you're more comfortable, we could offer an amendment to this motion.
I really defer to you, Mr. Selburn. The policy says I'm authorized, but I defer to you.
I think it says, but if approved by the board, does it require the board approval?
It doesn't seem to,
Okay.
but please, feel free. I love the idea.
Okay. I would suggest that we add an amendment. If anyone cares to make an amendment to this motion, to this proposal, that the computers that are currently in the Harper Academy.
I think it kind of,
I know
we're
it's
buying this for this room and then these are going to it. If he's authorized to do it, I think we
okay.
should just let him do it.
That's fine. As long as you're comfortable with that.
I would be happy to proceed in accordance with that prevailing board recommendation.
Okay. Everybody agree with that?
Agreed.
Yes.
All right. I guess that's sort of a semi.
I take it, sir. Thank you.
Okay, now-
that's a cool thing, board. Thank you.
Now, as to this proposal, all in favor? All in
Need a motion and support.
Oh, I thought we had one.
we did that.
We did that.
No,
No? Okay, well, I read it off, so I thought I asked for a motion, now I will. I'm not going to read it
I'll
off
give you the
again.
motion.
Do we have support?
Support.
All right. Total purchase is $22,275. All in favor of the making that purchase on behalf of the high school students, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion is approved, 7-0. Okay, last action item. I think last month we had none.
That's true, sir.
Is that the Board of Education, is at 11.8, and it's on page 64 of your packet. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education approves the MASB's process of certifying delegates and alternates for the delegate assembly on behalf of the city of Harper Woods. I'm not sure that's the proper motion.
We didn't know if we had, yeah.
I know. We don't know if we have anybody who's interested.
Correct.
Okay, before we go forward with a motion, there's an MASB delegate assembly that's scheduled to take place next week in Lansing. Board members are invited and encouraged to attend. There's a lot of things going on at this assembly. There's more than just the delegate assembly, but that's part of it. If anybody wants to attend that portion of what's going on at this convention, and they want to vote, because there's a lot of proposals that the MASB is putting forward, and if somebody wants to attend and vote on behalf of the Harper Woods Board, they need to be authorized ahead of time by us, and I think the deadline is tomorrow in order to do that. So, anybody who thinks they're interested in attending in Lansing next week on the 24th, step up. Okay. Crickets. I think Mr. Keene attended once as a delegate. I think I've gone to this, but I was not a delegate. And there's some valuable things going on there. There's classes. They have a lot of classes.
Yeah, I plan to go, but not on a Thursday. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think it continues on
Right.
through the weekend. Okay. Well, then I guess we don't need to take action on this, since we don't have anybody that's looking to make that trip. Which brings us to 12.0, board items, subcommittee reports. Any committee have anything that they care to report? Any committee chair? Okay, hearing none. We will move on to the report of the superintendent, Mr. Beadle.
Thank you, Mr. Selburn. I'd like to speak just briefly tonight on a singular theme, and that theme really is celebration of and appreciation for our parents. Whether we've been more welcoming or whether our parents are simply becoming more engaged, we're seeing more parents on all of our campuses and more parents at all of our events. Our attendance at our open houses and our orientations was up. I was very excited to get the report back from Principals Gottslieben and Vanderlinden in terms of their first combined elementary parent organization, and over 30 parents coming out and participating in that leadership opportunity. That body again will meet next Tuesday at Tyrone at 6 o'clock p.m. At 6:30 p.m. Again, that's the elementary parent organization next Tuesday, October 22nd, 6:30 p.m. at Tyrone. In addition, last week we held another of our parent leadership meetings. Board Member Mahone has in particular been helping to lead that particular effort. We again had about 40 parents in attendance. A very informative presentation and partnership from our Harper Woods Police Department, and I'm very excited to see that number of parents stepping up, demonstrating commitment, and working to provide leadership and partnership with the district, the board, and the district staff. Our parent university programs are up and running. Our principals reported that our count day attendance was strong, and we're very appreciative of our parents' support of that effort. Currently, we've, as our principal said, been administering the MEEP exam, and strong attendance, strong interest, and strong parental support of those endeavors as well. And so it is exciting to see more parents coming out to our events, supporting their children, and truly engaging in our ongoing academic processes. So we know that we've got the elementary parent organization meeting again next week. We've got the parent leadership organization meeting in early November. And as Mr. Selburn gave attention to, we've got our college night scheduled for here on the secondary campus, and that is scheduled for October 30th. So my message is, thank you, parents. You're making a difference. Keep coming. Keep expecting great things from us, and keep expecting great things from your children. Together, we can do great things. Thank you.
You know, just attaching on to that thing, I was at homecoming and I saw some individuals wearing those vests. On the back of the vest it said parent volunteer.
Yes, sir. That's an extension of that K through 12 parent leadership organization that's been meeting once a month for about 6 months currently. And so yes, part of their initiatives have been to have a parent presence at various district events, and to send the message that district events are family events. Come on out, have a great time, but please do understand that the greater Harper Woods community, not only the district, but the parent community as well, expects you to represent yourself well, and as you do that, to have a great time. And, I would tell you, those parents were out at homecoming, Mr. Selburn. I noticed them as well. We had a great homecoming celebration on that Friday night. No issues, just great kids having a good time, a great family environment. I absolutely believe that those parents are making a difference. Thank you for celebrating them.
And Rock made his debut.
Indeed, he did.
I want to piggyback on the parents. We also had a parent meeting with the senior parents. Yesterday, we had a nice turnout.
Nice.
Nice turnout for the senior class.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Beadle.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to public participation. If any members of the public wish to address the board, please step up. Seeing none, we will move on to matters of interest to board members. I have one item that I would like to just lead off with, and that is to let everybody know that tomorrow evening, late afternoon, starting at 4 o'clock, the Harper Woods Lions Club is having their annual pasta dinner at the AmVets Hall that's located on the corner of Allard and Harper. It runs from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and I believe the price is still $5. I'm not sure, but I think it is. It's $6. Okay, it has gone up. Okay.
John wasn't around.
John wasn't around to stop that. Okay. So it's gone up to $6, and kids, I think, are $3. Kids are what, up to age what, 65, 70?
For the young at heart.
So, anyway, that's tomorrow night from 4 to 8. Just putting everybody on notice about that. So, any other members have anything that they think is interesting?
The ACT test prep at the library, at the Harper Woods Library, won't do any good for the people listening because it'll be beyond it. It's Saturday the 19th, which means next Saturday. So do call the library if you have somebody who wants to take it so that they can prepare for a deluge of kids coming in to do it. There's another thing the library is doing for Halloween. They're calling it a haunted Halloween activity for kids. Wear the costumes Saturday, October 26th, 2 to 4 in the afternoon. They'll have stories, crafts, and candy.
Is the ACT prep classes free?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen nothing putting a charge on it, so I'm assuming it's totally free.
Anybody else?
I think what I want to do is thank the council and staff here. I've been spending not a lot of time, but especially at the beginning of the year, just working with them on schedules and just trying to get things straight for not only for my children, but for other children who may have inquired about some of the changes or things that need to be made. And I was really impressed by their interactions with the students, the work that they're doing with the students. The parents feel really comfortable talking to the counselors, not only about their children's academic, but even some personal issues. So when we got the email the other day, I wasn't surprised by the staff ability to handle that situation appropriately, because over the last few months I have noticed that they are really committed to not only the students here but the families and the community. So I just thought that sometimes they're considered unsung heroes, and they are actually parents to a lot of students, and when the students enter that particular part of the school, they really feel warm and welcome. And I've seen some of them come in with problems, and the counselors allowed them to just kind of relax, and then they approach them in a very warm and compassionate manner. So,
Okay, we'll pass those compliments along. Thank you so much.
And just adding to that, Mrs. Purnell, I think the social workers are probably, should be included in that.
yes, because again, when I think counselor, I think social workers too, because I'm a counselor by trade. But you're absolutely right. I really do think that they have added to the culture and the climates of just people feeling very comfortable here in the environment, warm and friendly.
Anybody else? Okay, that's a wrap. I guess we're adjourned. It's 9:14.